What secrets lie hidden in the ancient Book of Enoch? In this video we explore the mysterious story of the Watchers, fallen angels who defied divine order and descended to earth. Who were they? Why did they rebel? And what impact did their actions have on humanity? From forbidden knowledge to the birth of giants, the Book of Enoch reveals a gripping tale of heavenly betrayal and judgment. Join us as we uncover the truth behind these enigmatic beings and their role in shaping ancient history and spiritual belief. Don't miss this deep dive into one of the Bible's most mysterious texts: the Watchers, lust, rebellion, and the violation of divine order. The story of the Watchers, as preserved primarily in the Book of Enoch, is one of the most captivating and controversial narratives found in ancient Jewish apocalyptic literature. These angelic beings, originally sent by God to watch over and guide humanity, ultimately deviated from their divine mission. The Watchers are most infamously known for lusting after human women, descending to earth and taking them as wives. This act, seen as a direct violation of the heavenly order, triggered a chain of events that led to widespread corruption, the birth of the Nephilim, giants, and eventually the Great Flood. This essay will explore the Watchers' rebellion, their forbidden union with human women, the theological implications of their actions, and how their story reflects deep concerns within ancient Jewish thought about boundaries, holiness, and the consequences of transgressing divine law. The identity and role of the Watchers. The term Watchers is derived from the Aramaic word arin, meaning those who watch, or those who are awake. These beings are introduced in the Book of Enoch, 1 Enoch, particularly in the Book of the Watchers, chapters 1 to 36. According to this account, the Watchers were a group of 200 angels sent to earth to guide and watch over humanity. Their mission was supervisory, not participatory. They were to act as divine agents, ensuring that human beings followed the ways of righteousness. However, their interaction with humanity led to unforeseen temptations. Rather than remaining detached and faithful to their divine role, the Watchers grew fascinated, and then obsessed, with the beauty of mortal women. Lust and the fall, a forbidden desire. The pivotal moment in the narrative occurs in 1 Enoch 6, where we read, "And it came to pass when the children of men had multiplied that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men and beget us children." This passage directly links the fall of the Watchers to lust, a physical, emotional, and spiritual attraction that overpowered their divine obedience. The key transgression was not merely sexual desire, but the act of taking human women as wives, thereby blurring the line between the heavenly and the earthly realms. Their leader, Semjaza, initially hesitated, fearing the gravity of such a sin. However, the other angels swore an oath and bound themselves together under mutual responsibility, forming a pact to carry out their plan. This rebellion was not impulsive, it was deliberate and coordinated, marking a calculated mutiny against God's order. The union and its consequences. Once the Watchers descended to earth and took wives among humans, they fathered giant offspring, known as the Nephilim, from Hebrew naphal, meaning to fall. These beings are described as giants of great strength and violent tendencies. 1 Enoch 7:2-5 says, "And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind." This gruesome imagery conveys a world thrown into chaos. The unnatural union between the divine and the mortal results in monstrous beings who not only disrupt society but also corrupt the earth itself. The giants are portrayed as cannibals, destroyers, and a threat to creation. But the consequences didn't stop at physical destruction. The Watchers also taught humanity forbidden knowledge, skills and technologies that were not meant to be revealed at that stage of history. These included astrology, weapon-making, enchantments, sorcery, cosmetics, and herbal lore. This is significant because it connects moral corruption with technological advancement. The idea is not that knowledge is evil in itself, but that it becomes dangerous when acquired through illicit means or for immoral purposes. The violation of divine order. In ancient Jewish cosmology, the universe is highly structured. Heaven and earth are distinct domains, and the boundary between them is sacred. Angels are spiritual beings who inhabit the heavenly realms. Their contact with the material world is limited, purposeful, and always under divine command. The Watchers' descent and their sexual union with human women is therefore not just about lust or disobedience, it is a cosmic violation. It breaks down the ordered distinctions between creator and creation, spirit and flesh, holy and profane. Moreover, the Watchers assumed roles that belong solely to God. By fathering children and teaching hidden knowledge, they became rival authorities, offering humanity a counterfeit enlightenment. This mirrors other ancient myths such as the Prometheus legend, where divine knowledge is stolen and given to humans prematurely, resulting in punishment. Divine judgment. God's response to this rebellion is swift and severe. In 1 Enoch 10, the archangels, Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, and Uriel, are commanded to act. The punishment of the Watchers and their offspring is detailed. The Nephilim are to be destroyed, and their spirits become wandering demons on earth. The Watchers are bound and cast into the abyss, a prison beneath the earth called the Valley of the Angels, where they await final judgment. God declares that the earth will be cleansed through a great flood, a direct foreshadowing of the Genesis deluge. One of the most chilling lines is found in 1 Enoch 15:8. You, angels, were spiritual, holy, living an eternal life, but you became polluted with women, and with the blood of flesh begotten by lust. This judgment emphasizes the distortion of their nature. The angels were created eternal and spiritual, but through lust and rebellion, they degraded themselves into corrupted, flesh-entangled beings. Their sin was not just rebellion, it was self-degradation, a fall from glory into shame. Parallels in other texts. While the Book of Enoch provides the most detailed account, similar stories appear elsewhere. 1. Genesis 6 verses 1-4. This brief but provocative passage forms the basis of the Enochian story. The sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days. While the traditional Jewish and Christian interpretations downplay this passage, interpreting sons of God as the line of Seth, the Book of Enoch expands it into a dramatic myth of angelic rebellion and corruption. 2. Jubilees and other apocryphal texts. The Book of Jubilees and other apocryphal writings also mention the Watchers and their judgment. These texts support the idea that the flood was sent not just to punish human sin but to purge the earth of angelic corruption. 3. New Testament allusions. The New Testament briefly references this episode. 2 Peter 2 verse 4, God did not spare angels when they sinned, but sent them to hell, putting them in chains of darkness to be held for judgment. Jude 1 verses 6-7. The angels who did not keep their proper domain, he has kept in eternal chains under darkness for the judgment of the great day. These allusions confirm that early Christians were aware of and influenced by the Watchers' tradition. Theological implications. The story of the Watchers reflects profound theological concerns. 1. Boundary transgression. The core sin is not merely lust but crossing boundaries. The Watchers were spiritual beings who violated their domain by descending into earthly affairs. Ancient Jewish theology held boundary maintenance between the sacred and profane, the divine and mortal, as essential to cosmic harmony. 2. Free will and rebellion. The Watchers chose their fate. They were not tricked, coerced, or ignorant. Their actions reflect free will, which makes their rebellion all the more damning. Like Satan in later Christian tradition, the Watchers embody the danger of pride and desire unchecked by obedience. 3. Corruption of creation. The Nephilim are not merely unnatural. They are aberrations, results of spiritual beings manipulating the processes of human life. Their violence and appetite devour the earth, suggesting that sin has ecological as well as moral consequences. Relevance to today. While the story may seem fantastical, it touches on timeless themes. The abuse of power, the dangers of forbidden knowledge, the consequences of unrestrained desire, the blurring of moral and spiritual boundaries. In a world increasingly driven by technological advancement, ethical ambiguity, and spiritual confusion, the tale of the Watchers warns us of what happens when divine limits are ignored in pursuit of pleasure or power. The story of the Watchers who lusted after human women and took them as wives is more than an ancient myth. It is a profound reflection on order, temptation, and divine justice. Their fall serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of overstepping divine boundaries and the chaos that ensues when heavenly beings forget their purpose. By taking wives and fathering the Nephilim, the Watchers did not merely rebel. They corrupted creation, introduced forbidden knowledge, and ignited a series of events that ultimately led to the flood. Their punishment was eternal, a stark reminder that even beings of immense power are not above divine law. The Watchers' legacy endures, not only in ancient texts but in the enduring human struggle between obedience and desire, knowledge and wisdom, power and humility. In understanding their story, we gain insight into the values and fears of the ancient world, and perhaps, a mirror to our own. The Watchers' leaders, Semjaza and Azazel in the Book of Enoch. The Watchers, or Grigori in some translations, appear in 1 Enoch chapters 6-16, where they are described as angels who descended to earth during the days of Jared, a pre-flood patriarch. Their original purpose was to observe human activities, but they ultimately violated divine boundaries. Driven by desire, they took human wives, defiled themselves, and taught forbidden knowledge, actions that led to catastrophic consequences for both angels and humanity. The two most important names in this narrative are Semjaza, the ringleader of the rebellion, and Azazel, who emerges as the teacher of destructive secrets. Together they symbolize the twin evils of rebellion and corruption. Semjaza, the fallen leader of the Watchers. 1. Name and meaning. The name Semjaza is often translated as "he sees the name" or "my name has seen," from Hebrew origins, Shem meaning name and Haza meaning to see. This etymology is significant. It hints at spiritual perception and identity, and yet he becomes the archetype of perverted leadership. 2. The leadership role. In 1 Enoch 6, Semjaza is introduced as the chief of the 200 angels who conspired to descend upon Mount Hermon and take human wives. And Semjaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. 1 Enoch 6:3. Here, Semjaza is portrayed as a leader who senses the severity of the rebellion but is willing to go through with it if others will support him. This passage reveals both his charisma and his moral failing. He persuades the others to take a collective oath, effectively sealing their rebellion as a unified act. Semjaza does not simply act on impulse. He orchestrates the entire descent. His role as the leader implies premeditation, a deliberate and calculated departure from divine will. 3. Semjaza's transgressions. Once on earth, Semjaza and the Watchers took human wives and produced offspring called the Nephilim, described as giants who devoured all that men possessed, taught forbidden knowledge to humanity. Semjaza specifically is said to have taught enchantments, root cuttings, a form of herbal magic, and occult practices. 1 Enoch 8:3. His teachings represent spiritual corruption, taking divine secrets and weaponizing them for human misuse. Unlike Azazel, who focused on external tools of vanity and warfare, Semjaza's teachings disrupted the natural and moral fabric of human life. 4. Judgment and fate. Semjaza's fate is ultimately sealed by divine intervention. In 1 Enoch 10, the archangel Uriel is commanded by God to go to Noah and foretell the coming flood. Meanwhile, the archangel Raphael is instructed to bind Azazel, and the archangel Michael is sent to imprison Semjaza and his fellow leaders. Bind Semjaza and his associates who have united themselves with women so as to have defiled themselves. Bind them fast for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth. 1 Enoch 10:11-12. Semjaza's punishment is imprisonment in the underworld, a fate that reinforces the seriousness of angelic rebellion. The 70 generations reference implies a lengthy period of judgment leading up to a final reckoning, possibly linked to eschatological, end-time, restoration. Semjaza's story becomes a warning of what happens when spiritual beings reject divine order, seduce humanity, and misuse sacred knowledge. Azazel, the scapegoat of sin. 1. Name and meaning. Azazel is another major figure among the Watchers, but he carries a different legacy than Semjaza. His name may derive from Hebrew roots meaning God strengthens, Azaz plus El, but in context it becomes ironic. Alternatively, some scholars suggest it means scapegoat, derived from Leviticus 16, where a goat was symbolically cast into the wilderness for Azazel. Azazel is unique because, while Semjaza leads the rebellion, Azazel becomes the personification of sin and corruption. 2. The corruption of humanity. Azazel's role is outlined in 1 Enoch 8:1-2. And Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones and all coloring tinctures. Azazel's teachings introduced weapons of war, swords, knives, shields, cosmetic enhancements, beautifying of eyelids, use of antimony, materialism and vanity, use of precious stones and dyes. His influence is not merely technological, it is moral and spiritual. By teaching humans how to wage war and manipulate beauty, he helped instill violence, pride, lust, and deceit. Unlike Semjaza, whose teachings were more esoteric, Azazel's impact was visible and immediate. In this way, Azazel becomes a proto-satanic figure, one who tempts and leads astray not through power alone, but through seduction and deception. 3. Judgment of Azazel. Azazel receives special attention in the divine judgment. In 1 Enoch 10:4-7, God commands the archangel Raphael, "Bind Azazel hand and foot and cast him into the darkness, and cover him with rough and jagged rocks and leave him there forever." And the whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel. To him ascribe all sin. 2 things stand out. Azazel is blamed for all sin. While other Watchers shared in the rebellion, Azazel bears the symbolic weight of corruption. His punishment is eternal. Unlike others who are imprisoned for 70 generations, Azazel is to be buried and held until the day of judgment, indicating his role as more cosmic and archetypal. This scapegoat symbolism may tie into Leviticus 16, where one goat was sacrificed for sin and another, the Azazel goat, was sent into the wilderness to carry the sins of the people. Azazel then becomes a literal and symbolic dumping ground for sin and transgression. Comparative analysis, Semjaza versus Azazel. While both Semjaza and Azazel are central to the Watcher's narrative, their roles differ in tone and emphasis. Aspect: Semjaza Azazel. Role: leader of the rebellion, corrupter of humanity. Primary sin: rebellion, taking human wives, teaching occult knowledge, teaching war, vanity, and deception. Symbolism: apostate leader, fallen guide, scapegoat, tempter, archetype of evil. Punishment: imprisoned for 70 generations, buried and blamed for all sin. Focus of teachings: enchantments, root magic, spiritual corruption, weapons, cosmetics, material vanity. Semjaza reflects the tragedy of a leader who knew better but still sinned. Azazel, by contrast, seems to embody the evil that spreads uncontrollably once divine boundaries are crossed. Legacy in later texts and traditions. The impact of these figures stretches far beyond the Book of Enoch. 1. Influence on biblical interpretation. Though not named directly in Genesis, the Watchers are often associated with the cryptic passage in Genesis 6 verses 1-4, which speaks of sons of God taking daughters of men. Enochian tradition fills in the gaps, casting Semjaza and Azazel as the leading offenders. 2. Jewish and Christian traditions. In Jewish mysticism, Azazel becomes a demonic figure, often linked to Satan or demonic rebellion. Semjaza, though less mentioned, remains part of apocryphal and mystical traditions like Kabbalah and the Zohar. In Christian demonology, Azazel is sometimes associated with Lucifer or Satan, and Semjaza is viewed as a prince of fallen angels. The Enochian account heavily influenced the Epistle of Jude v6, and 2 Peter 2 verse 4, which speak of angels who sinned and were cast into chains. 3. Cultural representations. In modern culture, both names appear in literature, film, and esoterica. Azazel appears in movies, comics, and even as a demon in fictional horror narratives. Semjaza is sometimes cited in occult texts and angelology as a fallen but once great celestial being. These representations often borrow from Enochic themes: power, rebellion, corruption, and judgment. Theological and moral themes. The tale of Semjaza and Azazel offers deep theological insights. Free will versus divine order. The Watchers had choice. Their fall emphasizes the gravity of free will, especially when misused. Knowledge and responsibility. Their teachings were not evil by nature, but their timing and purpose violated divine boundaries. This theme resonates with the story of Eden and the Tree of Knowledge. Sin's contagion. One rebellion led to widespread human and angelic corruption, highlighting how evil can cascade. Ultimately, the Watcher's story is not just about ancient angels. It is a mirror held up to power, temptation, and the misuse of sacred trust. Semjaza and Azazel stand as towering figures in the mythology of the Book of Enoch. Semjaza, the reluctant but decisive leader, initiated a cosmic rebellion. Azazel, the master of corruption, brought war, vanity, and pride into the human experience. Their actions led to the birth of the Nephilim, the corruption of the earth, and a divine judgment through the flood. Their stories speak to ancient questions still relevant today. What happens when divine knowledge is misused? Where does evil begin? And can creation be restored after such devastation? Through these characters, the Book of Enoch explores the tension between heaven and earth, holiness and sin, order and chaos. Though written thousands of years ago, the legacy of Semjaza and Azazel continues to challenge, warn, and fascinate. Dive into the mysterious world of the Watchers as revealed in the ancient Book of Enoch. Who were these fallen angels and why did they descend to earth? This video explores their rebellion, forbidden knowledge, and the consequences that followed, especially the creation of the Nephilim. Discover how their actions shaped biblical history and influenced apocryphal texts. Whether you're a fan of ancient mysteries, biblical studies, or spiritual exploration, this episode will leave you questioning what lies beyond the traditional scriptures. Like, comment, and subscribe for more fascinating insights into hidden books and forgotten stories from the ancient world.